everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. We have a whole bunch of guests lined up for January and into February, so I'm really excited that we're back. Of course, we've got our favorite people here with us, and we are, of course, sponsored by the Hay Soaker. Take the mess out of soaking hay. A hay soaker makes your life easy. End of commercial. So that's my background. It's my new background, so I might as well explain that. So Sharon and Laura, just in case somebody doesn't know who you are, how about a brief intro to Horsebeak?
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks for having us again.
Yeah.
I was on our playlist and it looks like there's 21 videos on our playlist, and I don't know if it's all just us on the Wilsie playlist, but that's what it said. So I'm Laura Wilsie, co-founder of Horsebeak. This is Sharon Wilsie, the brains behind the reason why Horsebeak exists. And so basically what Horsebeak is a lot of years of observation to decode the language of horses and how they're communicating with each other, and then how we can actually imitate that body language, being a human, and have conversations with horses on an actual level of hello, nice to see you, horse, and it's not psychic.
Right. Yeah. I love that little caveat at the end, and it's not psychic.
It's not psychic.
It's not psychic, and it's not an updated version of natural horse. It's not anything else.
It's horsemanship outside the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taking questions.
Yeah, we are taking questions. So if any of you have a question that you want us to answer, just pop it in the Q&A, in the chat, actually, is the easiest thing. I'm like, no, it's not woo-woo. See, woo-woo only means that you don't see behind the curtain. Okay.
Right.
And I think that's really important for people to realize, like, air, we didn't know it existed until we found it, but we could all breathe. Same with gravity. So it just, until we understand it, we don't understand it. And then we just like to put it in a box of something else.
This is really interesting. I just wanted to say, Norma said, I did Trisha said, I did Horsebeak with 4 zebras at the Little Rock Zoo today and freaked my family out. Tried to explain it's not psychic, but they didn't believe me.
And how did the zebras respond? You didn't put in the best
film
part.
it, Trish?
Why does it say Norma and you're calling her Trish?
Because we know her.
She's staying at
I don't know why. That must
be
be
a
her
dual
middle
name.
I don't know what, yeah, but it's Trish.
Okay. You know what my experience has been when doing zebras, doing Horsebeak with zebras, is that they look at you like they hate you. They don't want to do it. They don't want to respond, but they have to, because you talk to them. They were very interested in speaking, came over and shoved each other out of the way, saying, my turn. That is cool.
That's cool.
Very cool. Where is that? I put a zebra picture in my newsletter, and it was 3 zebras, and their expressions with, if I can find it again, the expressions with each other was really, really funny. But anyway, okay, so tonight we're going to basically take questions, and the first question, and just rattle on as we do. And the first question that I have is from Denise Stevens, and she says, I have added an 8-month-old Andalusian filly and her 20-month-old sister to my herd. Do they learn the conversation from my older mares, or is it the language born in them? Have 2 pregnant mares and need to know how and when to start conversing with the babies. I'm new to horse ownership. Wow, and you've got how many already?
All right.
And surprised how experienced horse folks don't want to learn. Oh, how experienced horse folks. Well, don't want to learn Horsebeak. My pregnant mare particularly practically jumps in my lap when I do protector moves. So, you know, the horse world is a fascinating thing, because our relationship with horses is thousands of years old. And as a result of that, you have, because I run into this all the time with the stuff I do. Like I had somebody like with the lookup glasses go, oh, that's such a gimmick. It's like, no, it's actually intelligent to use something that's going to make it better and easier on the horse. But we're so steeped in traditions and wives' tales, and, you know, because it's been passed down. Yes, there are lots of books written, but you have to be with a horse to learn about a horse. It's not something you can just read a book and learn about. And the people that I've seen that try to do it just from the books, it doesn't work, because you have to interact with another living being. That said, because we are so steeped in tradition, it's very difficult for some people because they've been raised that way their whole life in horses, to open up to new ideas, which is why, there's, you have the innovators and the early adopters. We are, of course, are innovators, and you guys are the early adopters. And to move this into mainstream, a lot of people come to it because they've had a problem they couldn't solve. Same thing with Surefoot. It's a problem that they couldn't solve, and they tried everything else. And finally, they're going to get out of their box because it's not working, right? I mean, you guys want to throw something in there? Well,
Yeah.
No, you can talk the whole time. That'll be fine.
but I love, there are certain traditions that we have with horses that are fabulous. And it's keep the old that's working and add the new that helps to have a better relationship, because I've watched, like, for instance, saddles. I have watched people for years and years try to reinvent the saddles with things like carbon fibers and different materials. But, if you go back to some of those older designs, they actually worked really, really well.
They did.
Can't get back, we're so I think of the whole treeless movement, which started out like completely getting rid of, it was a bareback pad, and then they started adding stuff back in, and they started adding panels, and then a cantle and a pommel, and and then a seat. And so they're moving back toward a saddle because there's something about the design of the old saddles that worked. But you have to remember that our horses have changed shape. That's kind of why the old saddles don't work anymore, because the horses, we've bred horses into different shapes.
Yeah, the old saddles don't work on the new horse bodies.
Right.
And also saddles were made for men for thousands of years, and we have a higher volume of women riders now. So
but I find that really interesting, Sharon, because they talk about men's and women's saddles, and yet you look at the English world and they say, well, the woman needs a wider seat. And then in the Western world, the seats are all too wide. I can't, no woman can find a Western saddle that fits. So how can a guy ride in a Western saddle and be comfortable with them super wide for women? And yet, so I think it has to fit the person. And I think
definitely does.
Variation.
What I'm talking about, though, is that men have a 2-point pelvis seat bones, and women have a 3-point. So there's just a different functionality to how we balance ourselves. So
we can have a discussion about that at a future time when we're together.
Yeah, because bones better than I do. But no, but usually from the research I've done into saddles, it's all about the twist rather than the depth of the seat. It's more about the kind of twist it is, and how wide is the twist, separating your inner thighs, and what are your adductors doing in relationship to that twist. And the Western twist is different from an English twist. So to me, that's the part that has the biggest, because I was part of Jinsey Self-Buckland's research for some of the books she did, and she was way into that, all the pelvic floor stuff, and just from gleaning from that, I don't have the kind of depth of knowledge that you have about that. I'll let you
because thigh length plays a huge role in the size of the saddle. And so we don't want to digress into saddles. There's a great webinar that I have on saddles with Andy Foster that people can go watch. But yeah, I think that's in terms of why are horse people not adopting horse speak, I think that's the question.
Well, and I have an interesting take on that too, because there are some horse people who are hesitant. They're not the first, they didn't buy the first iPhone either. Right. They waited until everybody has an iPhone. Now you have to get one because everybody has one. The first few people to buy an iPhone, you're like, oh, aren't you posh? Isn't that like, what's wrong with your flip phone? You had to go buy that. And then there's a mass amount of pressure when more people have them than don't, or Zune or Droids or whatever, like that. But now once it gets past a certain point, nobody has a flip phone. So there's that measure of time of people being ready, willing, and able to move into the new technology. And I've also met a ton of lifer horse people who absolutely, when they are exposed to Horsebeak, go, that's what I've always done. So that I think it's two sides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I for those people, they say you're giving words or language or descriptions to stuff that I've intrinsically always done, or some people said I've always done it in secret. I just never let anybody see me do it. And I've had quite a number of cowboys say, this is cowboy magic. We're not supposed to talk about it.
Seriously.
Seriously. Yeah. I've had quite a number of, because they're like, this is what the old ranchers do. And this is what we always did. But you didn't want to look silly. You didn't want to look funny. So you just did it when you were working in private. You didn't really, blah, 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 blah. And I was at a cowboy poetry in Arizona. And it was surprising. They came to see my thing, and it was surprising how many of them pulled me aside and were like, you're doing the thing that we do, but we just didn't talk about it.
Because the cowboys typically they lack verbal language to express themselves. I mean, you go back and read their stuff and it's like, oh my God, I see,
and that's, I think, maybe the thing, if people are hesitant or unsure, or like, again, something else is out there in the horse industry, and actually realizing that you're already doing a lot of the stuff, but then being more conscious about it. That's the cool thing I think about Horsebeak, is that, the lady with the question, right? Like, we can give her probably 40 different things to do, and that's not even an exaggeration. And at the same time, it's like a saddle fit. It's horse personality and energy type, and personality and energy type. So then we can throw darts toward the dartboard, and maybe a few of the things will definitely work, but there could be, oh, well, that didn't work. And then it's like, okay, we have to actually see what's going on to be able to give you the exact and specific what you need to do to help you in that horse. And it might not be the same for the sister.
But I think her point is, I mean, can't you start doing Horsebeak with the mare to affect the foal? Like, yeah.
So, well, yeah. And this is coming away from doing anything, because what you're doing is speaking. So that's all that Horsebeak is it's a nonverbal language. So you're using nonverbal communication techniques that we basically, most of what our communication is mapped through is our nonverbals anyway with humans. So human to human, it's like 80% information, but it's all filtered and screened and done in the subconscious. So with horses, you have to reverse that. And that 80% that your brain is doing, that your cognition is not aware of, you have to flip that around and become aware of what you would normally do intrinsically. But the thing with horses and animals is that they intrinsically are born with the ability to decode nonverbal language. So they immediately, as soon as they open their eyes and start functioning, they start decoding nonverbal language, because they're not, they don't have to learn this semantic world. So when a human baby is learning verbal words, it's just sounds. They're just sounds that relate to concepts and meaning that's sort of devoid of what's actually happening right now. It's much easier to pick up a ball and go and roll the ball. Immediately the child goes hee, and they go get the ball, and you don't have to say go get the ball. You can say it, but that's paired with the action.
Well, it's like she was babysitting our granddaughter. She's like 14 months. She puts her snowsuit, her bathing suit, out in the winter. She took the toddler out in her bathing suit,
snowsuit,
throws the snowsuit on the floor, and the kid runs right over to it and lays down. And because she knows snowsuit equals outcome of going outside.
Right.
It's like, and it's similarly like when we're working with horses, and like, there's no not talking to a horse.
Right.
That's really
so
the
you
thing.
start talking you start talking to the babies immediately, and you're talking to the mom, and she's understanding you because this is what they do. This is how they speak. So unless the horse has a neurological condition, or they didn't get enough oxygen when they were born, or some reason why they functionally can't communicate, but the moment they open their eyes, they're starting to absorb that, because especially with a herd animal that has to get up and be able to move and run and ostensibly get away from predation within an hour or so after birth, domestic horses don't usually have to worry about that, but it's still in their nature. So especially in that situation, the ability for them to sight mother and stay with mother and have a part of the mother's body that they sight and they stay with while they're moving, that is so key and so essential. So from the first moments, they're learning to see her and absorb what her body language is saying on a basic level. We got to run, or it's safe, you can nurse now. So just a couple of basic things within the first hour that, and we watched.
Yeah, we watched a birth happen right in front of us. It was absolutely amazing. And within 45 minutes, you know, the
She
foal
had
was
said
up. Let's go.
five things to the baby, and she'd repeated those 5 things within that first hour. And then she put them all together when it was time to move, and he followed. It was really cool.
And the interesting thing too about like a mother, some from our Horsebeak Club, where we are watching videos from our members who send in videos all over the place in regards to age of horses, the dynamics, you know, watching, some mothers are better than others. And I think all of us humans could probably attest that maybe our mom wasn't the best mom, right? So we could find other horses in the herd who can be more nurturing and help the foal learn better. We've seen that we had 2 specific videos during our club where the mom was definitely challenged with being a mentor for the foal. They were like, aunts and uncles, you take over, you babysit the kid.
And with that being said, when Laura's been in Wyoming, there's the way they have it set up in this ranch is the mothers and babies have their own big wide field, and they just live there. There's no shelter. They just take care of themselves, and they don't mess with the babies. They don't handle them. They just live there. And then when it's time, they start messing with the babies when they're like 6 or 8 months or something. And so Laura gets to go out into that big, huge side of a mountain with these mamas and babies, and the mothers test her to be like, oh, you really think you know what you're talking about? And Laura says, yes, I do. And I can do protection messages, this and that. As soon as the moms buy it, they go, great, you've got babysitting duty. And they let the kids, and the kids all went to Laura, all these 4-month-old babies, and laid down around her and took naps. And the mom's like, peace out, yo, we're going to go up there and graze.
And you get to do the
Just hang out.
nursery school. Here you are. Here's the kids. Drop them off.
Yeah. And we actually feature one of the, we have a TV show that we have 4 episodes that we've produced that's on our YouTube station, Sharon and Wilsie, and it's called Cracking the Horsebeak Code. And one of the videos does feature myself with the babies
out in Wyoming.
And I'm doing like all these very clear gestures, postures, and signals with the foals. Even if you don't know any Horsebeak, just watch me. And I'm turning the key at certain areas on their bodies we call buttons, and the horse does a total turn on the haunches.
The baby.
Free, like a 4-month-old filly.
And as she's going past the mom's like blocking her a little bit. She actually headbutts mom, like, get out of the way.
Yeah,
I have
move.
I have
at
to
the
finish.
shoulder, which is like the move over button.
Yeah. And so mom moves over, but then as mom moves over, she's finishing playing with Laura. She finishes the circle because that's fun. And then mom touches her girth button. She reaches around with her mouth and touches her own girth button, which means it's time to go. We're going to get ready to go. And like a few minutes later, mom starts to walk off. She walks about 10 feet and stops, and baby's like, but I was playing. And so Laura moves off with them because baby's like, I don't want to go right now. So it's really an amazing thing because you can't train a 4-month-old baby to do a turn on the haunches, and especially they've never been touched before. It's like the baby was like, this is fun. We're playing. And the mom watching, I thought was my interpretation of the mother was that A, this was safe, B, it was interesting, and C, some level of understanding that this was a good interaction with a person. This was like prepping this is good for the baby because she is watching. She's watching the whole time. But there's this look on her face where she's like, well done, baby. You know, like it's very interesting because the mom knows that baby's got people in its future.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking a bit about the horse world conversation. And it's like, you guys are doing stuff that old cowboys have done. I do stuff that they have never done. It's like, you're not going to get a cowboy to take a nice purple pad and put a horse's foot on it. Right. I mean, I'm still struggling in that arena. So I think we have different perspectives on adoption of new concepts based on the
it depends. There's also the other side of people who they hear Horsebeak and they just immediately assume it's bullshit and they want to run for the hills.
And that's why I said at the opening, it's not psychic.
It's not
There
psychic.
is a part of intuition, like there's an intuitive aspect to it, because there is that part, like trust your gut. Like if you walk up to a horse and you have like your butterflies are flying all over the place in your belly, then maybe you should pause and take a moment back. Like there's these moments when it's your body is trying to protect you. But then there's also parts where the body's like, yes, like the answer is yes, go toward that horse you've never met before. So
But that's
it's like,
the thing is you know, we have this marvelous brain, but we still have the part of the brain that is the basic parts of the brain, you know, motor cortex and brainstem, that sort of thing, that perceive our environment. And, you know, am I safe is the number one. That's horse, person, cat, dog, number one. Am I safe?
the number one thing I did when I went out with those babies is I went to the edge of the fence line and did safety and protection messages. I didn't go to them. I went and I walked the edge of the fence line.
Which is what horses do.
Yes, when they go into a new paddock, watch them go to the edge of the fence line and check it all out. And then they'll maybe go into the middle and be like, what's going on here? But they always go to the edges. And it took me 10 minutes at the most to like do this really nice initiation.
To earn her
phase.
babysitter title?
Yeah. And then there was like 4 of them laying down. Like it was an absolute amazing experience because it was just following the protocols that we have in the book.
Or like what the person on the board who just said they talked to zebras, and that's the same thing that you're going to offer these basic safety and protection messages, because that is the first and foremost thing that we're all interested in. I love that you said it that way, Wendy, because it's not just predator and prey, it's also mammals. Like this is part of bonding and living in a group, is offering mutual protection, whether that group is a pack, a herd, a tribe, whatever it is.
Yeah. And
if it's more than one, it's a herd. If it's more than one, it's a herd.
Yeah.
And it's like there was a coyote that ended up showing up during that time I was out there. And it's like, I was aware. I'd be like, oh yeah, there is a coyote. And they were all fine. No one ran, no one spooked. Everyone just hung out and had a nice day.
Nice. Yeah, there's lots of comments coming in. Do we want to read some of these? It's
sure, yeah.
I'll go back because I know how far back. Explain the extra benefits to Surefoot when Sharon is doing Horsebeak and the benefit to Horsebeak with also doing Surefoot together with examples.
With examples.
With examples.
Well, you know what, Wendy, it was really great when we were in Martha's Vineyard together and we got to play together with horses and bounce off of each other in that way. And to me, the benefit is that, well, Surefoot, it first of all provides, there's something that horses do that's called safety object. So they will identify a place as being safe, but they'll usually identify an object with that place, like anything that could be out in their environment. Like sometimes there's tires, or there's a hay rack, or there's a tree, a log, the edge of the fence, whatever it is, but they'll identify an object and be like, this object represents the safe space. And if there's not anything for them to identify, they'll make a poop. They'll make a safety poop there, and then they'll come back and smell it several times. So Surefoot pads, horses often want to smell them first. And I think what you and I were talking about that weekend was when horses get on those Surefoot pads, they release and they feel better. And so there's a pheromone probably coming out their feet. There's some kind of scent of like, amazing, that they're leaving, because horses who've never seen them before often want to smell them and sometimes take a big whiff if other horses have been using them. And I've really noticed that I put 2 and 2 together recently. And I'm like, you know what? I think they're leaving that pheromone charge, because if we touch, the human being can make a safety object by touching an object with your palm and doing a big exhale. So if you breathe in 4 and you exhale 8 in that big exhale, you're kind of switching yourself into a little bit more parasympathetic. And there's a pheromone discharge in your palm. And so then I was like, wait a minute, that's what happens with Surefoot pads, because they're standing on them. So the pad itself can represent safety. So even sometimes if they haven't stood on it, just putting it out for them equates safety. So just having it be available, they're like, that makes me feel safe. And there was a couple of horses, Wendy, you and I were working with in Martha's Vineyard, and one of them was like all about getting on the pads, the other one was like, I can't stand on that pad, but he wanted to smell it, and then he wanted to rest near it. And so even that, because you actually had a lot of breakthroughs with him as you worked on him through the weekend, but that started it because he was like, I can smell how good that is, and that makes me feel safer, and I can start relaxing, because he wasn't going to let you put your hands on him at first.
Yeah, he was very hesitant, but there is that, using calming signals and that sort of thing, and greeting. I mean, I use the pads to greet. That's what I do. That's my greeting to horses. It's here's this nice pad. You can smell this nice pad. So, I think there's a lot of ways that it can get incorporated also with like T-touch and that sort of thing. It's just, what I see is that the horses start to recognize that you're safe because you've offered it and they've had a choice. And I think
and
that's
the other part is because a lot of what Horsebeak offers is to have more defined observation skills. And so then you notice, oh, they twiggled their shoulder.
Right.
Oh, but they're putting more weight on their right hind, but their left twiggled. So then you're starting to like
puzzle pieces,
an equation of like
you're
what
really right about that because it does magnify things so you can see things more clearly.
Because one of our mottos in our actually year-long program is called Everything Means Something. So as we watch these videos, as horses are on Surefoot pads and go slow with them, we can notice how they're shifting their weight.
Or they twiggle.
Oh, they
a twiggle is when the skin does this
twitch wiggle.
Oh, okay.
This kind of thing. It's like a twitch wiggle, but they
That was
often
well done.
Thank you. I practiced. They will often do a twiggle as a signal to others, us or horses. Look at this button. This is the button I'm talking about. Since they don't have hands, they can't do these, kinds of grandiose gestures. So they do twiggling as a way to signal, I'm talking from this button, because each button is a different location on their body and they have different intrinsic, emotional, and significant meanings. So if they twiggle their shoulder button after looking at a Surefoot pad, they're saying that makes me feel buddied up, which means I feel like I'm safer and I'm not as alone, which is a big message, especially for horses who get like anxiety about being alone.
Right. So Dana says it's not woo-woo at all. It's I've been in a deep research and deep dive in research and literature for the past 3 years, and there is literature to support communication and connection. Humans can learn so much. It's kind of like we're relearning what we used to know.
Yeah.
I think that's
one of the projects that we're working on right now, and we're at the beginning stages of it, is working on heart rate variability.
Awesome.
Dr. Jen Janik, she is out of too many J's. Dr. Jen, she's out of Houston, Texas, and we've been doing some, we actually have a new horse.
Oh,
yes, surprise. Happy New Year. We
What
have
have
a
you
new horse. His name is Robert. He's also known as Robert the Rose Horse. There's a book from the 60s that's called Robert the Rose Horse, and was one of my favorite children's books. And
she manifested this horse.
I
because of that
manifested
book.
this horse. And so he is an interesting fellow. And so we're doing, meaning it's like he's beautiful and he's full of brawn, and then your stomach gets a little clamped when you're near him. So we are actually, what's happening is that I'm wearing an HRV heart rate monitor, and he's wearing one. And so we're taking studies just at this point, kind of doing normal activities. Like, I'm going to feed you today. So let's see, I'm going to put your halter on today. And then I am starting to integrate more and more Horsebeak stuff with him. Like specifically, we're going into the indoor practicing. Can we stop at a barrel and chill for a minute?
Right.
No,
basic
we can't.
stuff.
So just to like notice these small little activities and watch the monitor. And I'm videoing all of this at the same time.
What is he?
He's a quarter horse. He's off the track. And he was also Western trained, reining trained between 4 and 6. And he was with his same mom for a long time, like 12 years.
Yeah.
And so there was the comment was from them is like, we just had a feeling we couldn't really trust him. And we have that same feeling from him.
Yeah.
So we're
Have you done Surefoot with him yet?
Actually, not yet. And I
I'd
was
love to know the HVR on with the Surefoot.
We will be.
Yeah, we're gonna do I'm trying to do as much activities. It's just a lot of tech to
Yeah,
do.
it's a lot of things to
and
run at the same time.
it's just been like, I can only do it so many days a week, but yes, we are going to I have the Surefoot pads in
Yeah.
the barn. We're going to do that. It'll be super cool. So what we're watching is to see, like, for example, he is really dive bombing into his halter. And what Dr. Jen is noticing is that he's getting highly dysregulated with the halter.
Yeah.
And so it's like, get it over, get it on, like all these things.
He
It's
basically soldiers up to
Yeah,
every activity.
every activity.
But there's indicator, he had very, very bad teeth, even though his owner had taken really good care of him and had gotten his teeth done regularly. But somewhere along the line, something got missed, and it got missed in a big way. And he had a puncture in his cheek, and it was really just ulcerated and just very painful. So nothing could happen until he got his teeth done, because he was just in pain.
So we got his teeth done. It's been almost 2 weeks. So his baseline is changing a little bit since his mouth isn't so sensitive. Like, I really couldn't even touch his cheek.
Right.
Because he was just like, no. And he has a couple of spots on his spine that are
red
very
flags.
sensitive.
Yeah.
So I touch his wither and he twiggles.
And
he
we have,
wants to
we also,
bite.
this might be interesting for Surefoot pads too, because we also have an infrared camera.
Yeah. We have a
Oh,
thermal.
awesome. You guys
So-
are getting into tech. Yes. And
Yes.
I've had people that have infrared cameras and are supposed to send me stuff, but
They're
seen
trying to
change.
define.
One person definitely saw change, but I would be what tech are you using for the heart rate variation?
It is a Polar brand heart monitor.
Because they do horses.
And then there's Elite. It's a free app. It's Elite HRV.
Okay. Is it the strap, the one that goes
Yeah.
around? Yeah.
That's why I wanted to do some infrared imaging, because I wanted to see, because you obviously have to put on the monitor.
Right.
So you obviously have to get in the stall. So I have
They get dysregulated
they
just
get
because you did it.
And so, right. So then it's like, because he is getting dysregulated with me going in the stall, I wanted to be able to record something that was non-invasive. I mean, walking into the barn, obviously you have to like walk in the barn, but to see the colors and the changes and stuff. So
Right.
we haven't dove too deep into that yet, because we're just trying to get a lot more of the just normal
As
HR.
you know,
stuff.
just running labs. She's just the lab rat right now, and she's just, getting everything working.
Yes.
But one thing that's been interesting is that she accidentally made the nurturing breath because she had a cold and it was cold outside. And so she went like that. And he completely regulated. Dr. Jen goes, "What did you just do?" And Laura had marked that she sniffed her nose loud at that moment because she saw a change in him. And it was the nurture breath. She's like, "I didn't mean to do the nurture breath, but that's what the nurture breath sounds like. It sounds like a big snort." And he totally he went, "You love me." And then since then, he starts regulating when he sees her, and he gets dysregulated when she goes away.
Mhm.
So that's really
Yeah, I had you were reminding me, I had somebody in Colorado who had a very fancy heart rate HBR system and was looking at, she had a little pony and she did Surefoot with this pony and recorded over time. And the problem was, if they see the pads, it's already having an effect once they know the pads, right? So that makes things complicated.
So it is like introducing, like, it's just, the goal is to try to get as much recorded as possible from beginning.
Before we change anything.
Yeah. So that's why I haven't done too much.
And I've only interacted with him once because I'm like in the closet, like I'm being saved for later because she's getting.
And this is the thing about doing research that makes it so complex. It's like, I don't want to use just a general, to like taint an experiment with a living being. It's so easy because like you snuffed your nose and now he's like, "Oh, hi, Laura."
Yeah.
The variables are just so wide. I mean, luckily, and the thing that what Laura and Dr. Jen are really hashing out right now is what needs to even be on the study. So because going forward, we'd want to be able to give people copies of, copy this study. And you need to know like what you're looking for and what are your start points and what are you looking to evaluate. And we don't even know that right now. We're just trying a whole bunch of things to.
Well, and that, I mean, people all the time ask me about research with Surefoot, and what you have to realize is So I sat with Dr. Stephen Adair at UT Tennessee for 2 hours trying to design a study. I've also sat with Bob Belker and Hillary Clayton over a 2-hour lunch and tried to decide, but with Dr. Adair, it was, you need the same handler that's going to lead the horse. You need the same footing the horse is going to be on. You need, it's like, there are so many variables that you have to control. Otherwise your numbers just get ridiculous, right? Because you have to have so many numbers to have
because
statistical significance.
I'm learning so much about researching, and especially because of dealing with technology.
Oh my God.
And so one day I didn't use the gel on the monitor.
Oops.
And the thing went nightmare. And I'm like, and I'm looking, because I'm trying actually not to look at the monitor to see like what his numbers are, because I don't want to have any conscientious awareness of what's going on that level.
And luckily it's translating right through to Dr. Jen, who's in Houston. So she gets the,
Oh, perfect.
gets the
Okay,
flow.
because the double heartbeat I
so-
used to get from the polar monitors made me crazy. I used to get a double
Yeah,
heartbeat
so-
all the time.
I was like, this is wrong. There's something wrong. So I'm just glancing, and I did wipe them all down and I put the gel on, and the monitor was actually malfunctioning.
Yeah.
And so it was like, how interesting, because his heart rate was like all over the place and everything. So it's just like the consistency is key. That's the bottom line. So every day I'm trying to get out there around the same time, do the same pattern of what I do every morning. And it's me. And like the one horse goes out and the next one goes out. So he is even reacting differently to all the horses.
Absolutely.
And things of that.
It is what
Right.
makes doing true good research. You can do crappy research, sure, but to do really good peer review that's going to get passed in a journal, it's really hard with an animal because there's so many variables. So good on you. It is. Because my background, I have a master's degree in equine reproductive physiology. I had one warm arm all winter. And it
That
snowed.
sounds
That
like
was
a
a
fascinating
horrendous winter in Kentucky. Oh my God, it was one of the worst winters they ever had. It's just really hard to come out with something at the end that you can actually, say this is solid data.
And
People don't
videoing
have
everything.
any clue what it takes.
no, it's just grueling. It's grueling and heartbreaking, and most of your shit goes wrong.
Especially when you think you hit the button
Yeah.
and you just did like an hour-long session and you realized the button didn't get hit. And then you're like, a whole hour of data is gone. And
Yeah.
so I was like, through that process, it was like the acceptance factor. And I feel like I was able to get over that hurdle. Luckily, Dr. Jen's been the support person for me, because I'm like, this sucks, really. Was what it was
You almost
coming
need
down
an intern just to handle that, to make sure things are running.
Yeah. But then it's also sometimes if you disrupt the phone, it does weird things. It's like, don't touch it, just leave it in a visual place so you can actually see it and hope that it's just doing it.
No, it's a challenge. All right, moving on here.
Well, I was going to ask you one thing though, because so that should be something that we get. We can do that. We can make him stronger. We can make him faster. So getting back to the $1 Million Man. We can do the HRV study using the Surefoot pads. I have 2 orange, 1 big long square orange, and 2 yellow wedges. Is there another pad that you'd like us to have?
Yeah, we'll talk
For
about
that.
it later, because you
We'll talk about
probably,
it later.
with all the horses you have, you need all of them.
So I mean,
Because you need all the different density. Yeah, but you would pick one density for a study. You wouldn't. That's where I'm advising people when they're doing any kind of research to stick with one density, because the minute you add 2 densities, you've got you squared it, right? You've actually got 4 more factors.
this is
So
why I'm asking.
yeah, no, you got to really control your variables. And yes.
We'll just work with that, because that's something I was
Yeah.
going to start to look at.
Well, and
towards
I
the-
can help you. I can hook you up with a friend of mine who is used to looking at research studies to make sure you're going to come out with an outcome. So I should hook you up with her. So
Sure.
we'll talk. Okay.
Well, yeah, that would be great. Jen's been doing research for 30 years. So her specialty is traumatic brain injuries. So this is her side job of
This woman's a
COVID.
horse person, so she can advise on the horse side of it.
oh, indeed. That's
Perfect.
beautiful.
She's a vet. Yeah.
Great.
Super.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. My Horsebeak with deer is always a learning curve. Mostly they've taught me not to lower my head too much if it feels threatening. They know how antlers work. Okay, so this question is more for Wendy, if that's okay. Yeah, I have a Surefoot pads and PEMF, neck, back, shoulder, and leg wraps. Can I use PEMF devices with Surefoot pads, or should I treat them separately, as it might be too much? She enjoys the Surefoot pads and the PEMF. Okay, if you've done both of them separately, then you can combine them. You always want to keep those sessions short in the beginning because they should enhance each other, and you don't want to overdo it. Okay, so I always tell people, keep it short in the beginning when you start combining, just to make sure everything's cool, because you don't know, you can't undo it, right? You can't take it back. Sorry, I did too much. Right? So just start with short, and you can always add over days, but you can't subtract. Also, the shape of the horse's back changes over time as well. Oh, Ellen.
I like this question that just came in.
Okay.
Is there any information about the Surefoot pads possibly blocking the electromagnetic forces from the ground?
That's a question I've had for a long time, because I know horses have Pacinian and Ruffini receptors in the soles of their feet. We have them too. Okay. And they're triggered by vibration. So the sensors in the horse's foot, when the foot lands, the foot deforms and it triggers the nerves, right? And the proprioceptors. So you have the Pacinian, which are more in the heel bulb, and the Ruffini that are in the sole. And they're different. One is a fast response and the other is a slow response. But, there are these receptors. And so that's been one of my questions that I would love to have answered. Because we put so much crap through the ground now. We run all kinds of crap, all kinds of fiber optics and electrical and everything else through the ground. So I can't answer it, but it's a question I've had for many years.
Well, and we know for sure that the horses have a challenge with electricity in the ground. We had at our old house, the line that connected, there was an electrical line under the driveway that connected the house box to the barn box through the driveway, and the horses were so hesitant on going across that line.
They would go up and around they were happy to go out for a ride. They were happy to go down the end of the driveway. They wouldn't cross that line. We had to take them around because they would just panic.
And that reminds me, we had our electric fence, we had a wire that was connecting one paddock to the other, and Al wouldn't go across. And so we had to change that because he wouldn't cross it.
Measure the electromagnetic dampening of those pads.
See, I think that there's certainly a possibility that that's happening. I don't have any research, right?
Well, it's at least an insulator. Like it's not, like it's a foam insulator, which
I think you'd have to take the pad into a lab and run and place it around electrical currents and just see what happens.
We could just try to we'll put a low grade electrical pulse through a pad and touch it on the other side and see what we feel.
There you go. Can you read so the person that asked for about PMF, is there some way to pick up the vibration in the air? Can you, it's emitting, right? So the air around it should be affected, and it would be interesting to put PMF on one side and then check and see if there's something coming through in the other. We could come up with so many ideas. That's the problem.
I wonder, using the thermal camera, I wonder if that would give any input.
It's certainly worth a shot. I think what's happening with the thermal, the data that I've seen, somebody sent me some stuff once, is that it's increasing blood flow, which would increase blood flow into the foot, which could explain a lot of the responses that we see because we're perfusing the foot.
Which then creates more circulation through their whole body. Horses are said to, have 5 hearts. So that's interesting.
Right. You see what I mean? We could come up with so many, and the beauty of what you do and what I do is, even without the research, we don't need it because it's not
that word,
evidence.
Evidence. Yes, we are evidence-based. We're just not, in the scientific laboratory evidence-based, but we are evidence-based. You and I both, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it didn't work, right? Let's face it.
And your glasses, you mentioned, the glasses that you sell.
Oh, my look-up glasses?
I don't look up glasses. I mean, I watched you at the Equine Affair, and there was a very noticeable change
Mhm.
in every horse and rider when they put those glasses on
Mhm.
versus when they took them off.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah.
The stride of the horses, once they got the students were wearing the glasses, they could just flow. And as soon as it was like such a change, it was a downshift immediately when those glasses came off. It was so interesting.
Do you think that's because of the optic nerve, which is one of the cranial nerves being, if the cranial nerve that goes to the
First, let's
eye-
explain what we're talking about, because not everybody knows what lookup glasses are, and I don't happen to have
Have
a
any?
pair right here. So lookup glasses I've created, they're clear lenses, but they block the field of vision below and above, so you have a slit. So it's kind of like seeing the way a horse sees with a horizontal pupil. It changes, you can't see anything down below you or anything above you. I think what it does, and I had one person, she was like ADD or something, and she would like yak like crazy on her horse, and I put the glasses on and she'd stop talking. It reduces the amount of input that you're getting into your brain, right? Because we've taken away parts of your field of vision. So, but it doesn't give you hard eyes. It doesn't make you stare. It just reduces the input. So I think that there's something about reducing the input. It also balances your head. That's why it works with the stride length and why they change, because everybody wants to look down, and even a tiny little drop of your head forward is going to put the horse in the forehand. So you have to look through and forward through the slit. You know, and I'd be really curious if next time you have a clinic is to give everybody the lookup glasses and see if they don't see things differently or see more detail.
Mm.
By reducing that extraneous, right? And just focus, kind of giving them a kind of a place to look.
There was a friend of ours who's a ophthalmologist, and he had said he was designing glasses that were for people who had learning disabilities of one kind or another. And even some people who had different visual impairments and things, but he was designing glasses that had tiny little sensors in the sides here.
Yeah.
And they were little lights that would go bing, 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 bing. And they were not bright enough that they would distract you, like you're seeing, and it's making you, you're gonna have an epileptic seizure. They're just tiny little things, but they would flash when you set the glasses on, flash, and they would flash. And what it would do is keep your peripheral vision open. And by doing that, because he was studying how the peripheral vision affected your vagus nerve.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I wondered if your glasses did some of that too, like it makes you go into some of your peripheral vision.
Yeah, it's interesting. And yes, Norma, I first created them so that people would see the way horses, more like how horses see, because they have a horizontal pupil. But then I actually stuck them on people on the Surefoot balance trail first, and then I finally went, oh, let's put them on when they're riding. There's always a progression, you know. Is there any information about? Oh, you guys did that one. Yeah, riding under the power lines. I can hear the power lines crackle. Wow. So there's got to be.
Thank you, Dana. That's the right word.
What is it?
Anecdotal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got to write that down, because I tell you, I forget that word all the time. And I'm like, what's that word?
What's that 50-cent word?
Just one of those ones.
Anecdotal. Awesome. Got it. Written it down. Thanks. How are we doing? I found the zebra picture.
Oh, good.
I'm going to share the zebra picture because I think it's hysterical. And you can tell everybody what they're saying to each other.
All right, super. Where'd you take this picture?
Africa.
Okay, I figured that.
I got a couple others I could show you. So they love to roll on the road. So
okay,
you'll be driving down the road, and I just love this one. And you're driving down the road, and they love to roll on the road. Now, I don't have the rolling pictures, but I was just thumbing through some of that. I thought the expression on these guys was so funny.
it is really cute.
Look at that little face.
So the little one is just so cute. Well, basically, they're all paying attention and listening and looking to something that's behind them. So the littlest guy is also looking at the camera person. I assume that's you.
Yep.
So he's looking directly at you, but he's focused on something behind, and they're tail swishing it at the same time. So they're standing in buddy up position, shoulder to shoulder, and also girth to girth. So they're with each other, they've buddied up to each other, and they're feeling secure in that connection, but they're also girth, which is ready to go. So like
the one on the outside, not the baby, but the one on the far side would probably be the one who's going to make a decision to leave.
I would say that's the one making a decision to leave because his head is highest. So they do have a voting system. Equines, deer have it, cows have it, but a lot of herd animals have a voting system, and usually there's a few of the ones that are in the voting position will have their head slightly higher and will make a look and then kind of look back at everyone else and make a look and then drop it. And then others get to look where they looked and look at something. And then if the majority looks that way, and it can be very fast, like you have to have this on film and slow down to like frame by frame to see it sometimes because it's so quick or so subtle. But to me, the one closest, that's why Laura said it, the one closest to the grass is looking at the zebra who's over on the grass, but also the ones that they're buddied up with, and then everything that's going on behind them, and is going to be making that call to say, I think we should go that way. The one in the middle is starting to agree with the one on the edge because the head is starting to turn that way. And the baby is just like, I'll go wherever you guys go.
Yeah, the baby's like, what?
Where's up with the camera lady? But the tail swish is significant. I mean, that could be flies, but that kind of tail swish. There's a certain kind of tail swish that they do, and donkeys do, and horses do, which is like, I want to be done with this. So they're sort of very X posture, very ready to go, very lined up. And this would be a protective cluster also. That's why they have stripes, right? Because it's harder for a predator to get one animal because they're so stripy. It's like, oh, there's a whole bunch of legs. What's going on here? Can you go backwards again to one of those other pictures?
Yeah.
So like this one is interesting because they're definitely more casual. There is the one in the far back there is also paying attention to something behind. I just noticed, isn't it interesting when he bends his neck, how that black and white stripe changes in the middle of his neck, the one way in the back?
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
That's really interesting. The two zebras on the right of the screen that are in much more of an O posture, they have a low neutral head. The ears are slightly back as well. And then we have the zebras, the three on the left of the screen. And again, I think it's probably the same group. There's this, there's this one that's furthest away with the head up. So that's the sentry in this picture. That's the sentry one. And they're paying more attention to what's going on in the surroundings. That's why they're a good sentry. That's the one with the highest head. So that's the one that everybody else will pay attention to. So each animal is going to pay attention for itself. They're not just going to surrender and not look at anything, but they listen. They pay attention to what the sentry's opinions are, because the sentry has usually got a very good head on their shoulders, and they're sentry because they can take in a lot of information and not panic about it. So they're only going to suggest we run if you really should run. And so because the sentry is really paying attention, you have this sort of cute moment with the others where one's rubbing her jaw on the neck of the baby, and that's just an affection right on the grooming button. And that's a hug. That's kind of a horsey hug moment right there. So there's just this affectionate rubbing, we can be casual and chill because we're surrounded by buddies and we've got a sentry right next to us. So that's my take on that.
Cool. I have one other.
Wow. It's so cool how they blend in together.
Yeah. They're fun to photograph. You tend to forget to photograph them because there's so many, but then it's like, wait, let's photograph some zebras.
Well, I like the one that's right in the middle with the lowest head. That one's also chewing and paying attention to the one right next to it, the other face that we can see. So this one with the lower head is licking and chewing, and the ears are what I call airplane ears. So they're really out to the side. And the eye is paying attention to the one that the other face that's behind it. So I'm not sure what they're going to be doing, what their plan is, but that one is deferring to the one behind it. So the one with the slightly higher head is the one who's got a little bit more authority in that situation between those two. And that one has a perkier expression. The ears are straight up, and they're not straight up in a worried way. They're just straight up in a concentrated way. and that one is not licking and chewing. So the one who's like, we often do that face ourselves. Like if we're listening to someone and we go, we kind of open our mouth and we kind of drop our head, and we do a lot of head bobbing, and there's a lot of intrinsic stuff that we do when we're deferring to what someone else is saying. And that's basically what is going on here. And again, you see all the ones around them are paying attention to things in the environment. So those two that feel like they're in the center of the herd, at least in this moment, they don't have to pay attention to the environment so much because everybody else is. So they can have a private conversation to themselves, which is one of the neat dynamics about looking at how equines use body language, also in relationship to their world. There's the ones who can float to the center, either are higher, if they're like in the center and there's a grazing group around them. Those are usually like the mascot, not the mascot, the sentry in the middle, who's kind of like, I'm keeping an eye on the whole world. But that's when they have like high ground, like there's a mound or a hill or something that they're standing on. Or you see in other cases where the protectors go to the outside of the circle and put the weaker ones or the younger ones to the inside for protection. So there's two different ways that they use circling behavior and the edge of their herd bubble for different reasons. So in this case, these two in the middle are like, we don't have to worry about the tigers and lions right now because we're in the middle. so we can talk about this.
So that's just, I just saw this in the scroll on the bottom, but this is during the Great Migration, and we I had two groups last year, and the first group we had to go way down toward the Tanzania border to find any wildebeest, and then the second group we got some rain and they came back up, and we drove up onto this ridge and looked out on about 2 million wildebeest. I mean, there's no photograph that can ever capture what that's like, but the zebra will often travel with the wildebeest, the herd animals traveling together. So this just gives you a sense of just how many wildebeest there are.
It's amazing.
That's beautiful.
It is totally amazing. And that mama right there is in a total X posture. She's very alert. I wouldn't say she's in alarm, but she is on alert. And the way she's holding her tail, maybe she was just dropping some dung.
Yeah.
There. And the baby is glued to her hip. So he's in a follower position, but he's got his eye and his ear on that closest wildebeest. He's just a little bit insecure, like, it's getting really close, Mom. So, and she's not worried about the wildebeest. She's concerned about whatever she's looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, that was really fun. It's always fun to like throw some pictures at you.
Yeah. It is fun. It's fun for me too, because there's slight accents that are different with different kinds of equines. Like I love talking to donkeys. I have to say, one of my goals, my next purchase would be a couple of donkeys, because talking to donkeys is so special. I think that they are,
be careful what you wish for. I'm sure somebody listening to this.
We only live about 10 minutes away from Save Your Ass Rescue over in Langdon.
Oh, there you go.
The next ass you save could be yours. There's a plug for her rescue. There you go. That's on her t-shirts. It's really funny.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I love talking to donkeys because on the one hand, they move very slowly and predictably. So there's a lot of really good practice that people can have, because you need to really swim into the conversation with a donkey. But on the flip side, people will use donkeys to protect like cattle and sheep and stuff, because they have that switch where they were like, I will kill you. So I love that.
Can we, for our next conversation, do you guys have some video of donkeys and we can talk about donkeys?
We have that one. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'll find it.
I could go talk to Mouse. My friend has a donkey named Mouse.
Right. Mouse is
and the mule, Mr. Mule. We could talk to Mr. Mule and Mr. Mouse.
All right.
Okay,
I guess
great.
we're gonna go visit Linda.
Yeah.
So Norma just said the zebras at the zoo decided that they were interested in communicating with me after I started blowing away the boogeyman and doing some mirroring. Then I went into X posture, and when I did protection messages, one said learning something, and then they all dropped their heads and each one showed me their buttons on each side. In the end, they all lined up girth on girth, facing me with beckoning looks on their faces. I was so grateful for Horsebeak. was such an honor to be able to speak to them.
That is
awesome.
so cool. And what a gift
Yeah.
to give. I have noticed, especially with equines, if you make a statement like that with animals that are a little insecure and you say you're safe, it's all okay, they tend to memorize it and say, okay, thanks for telling me. And things change for them. Like there's been so many Horsebeak cases where we've met a horse, even on like a Zoom session, because we do Zoom calls. And you know, we lead the person through the Horsebeak conversation, and they'll call us or write to us or something a couple weeks later and be like, everything's been different since then. Like this and this and this and this issue are gone. And so, because sometimes there's a one and done factor where the animal has just been sitting there the whole time going, would somebody just tell me if I'm all right?
Yeah.
And then you do, and they're like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, done.
Really.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to talk to you guys again. We'll get you back next month. We'll see if we can get back to our monthlies, because I missed talking with you guys. It's always so much fun. And I know everybody else enjoys it too. So we'll leave it at that tonight. Hopefully everybody will have a lovely evening, and thank you all for joining us. And just tell your friends that they can find all of these videos on the Surefoot Equine YouTube channel. I still get people asking if it's recorded. Yes, they're all recorded. And then I upload them usually within 24 hours onto the YouTube channel. And we are continuing to upload the audio from the webinars on Wendy's Winnies, which you can find on Apple Podcasts and Google, I think too. Yeah. And we're up to we've put up 2 a week, and we're still only up to 174.
And I wanted to plug, you have, you still have on your website the saddle information. You had a video about saddling, and you had a video about riding with the bones with Neville and stuff. Do you still have that up on your website? Or are those
I think it
webinars?
might be on Horse Class video. It might be on Horse Class.
Okay.
The one I did, like the Rising Trot one, or different. Yeah.
Well, you had really good videos about riding.
Oh, yeah. No, I have
Yeah.
some on the Murdoch Method YouTube channel, and then Horse Class has some on theirs on their Facebook page.
Because we did mention that in the beginning, saddling and riding and pelvises. And so I thought I wanted to give a plug for, because those are really great.
Yeah, the slogan is www. How many W's?
Wacky webinars with Wendy and the Wilsies.
Wilsies, there you go. Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you guys. Stay warm.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
great.
Bye.
Thank you
Thanks
all
for
for attending our
joining us.
webinar today. Take care.
And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Cheers.
Cheers. Be well.